these things.
All right, and here we go. Good evening and welcome to another edition of Community Issues, Showtime TV. I'm your host, Omar Rashada. This is a very special program. We're going to be taking a look back at history. We had the Wilmington Riots that took place in 1968 after the death of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who died on August the 4th, 1968. And then you had the Sheila Farrell case, a young lady who's got shot by Mr. John Bailey for apparently taking a peach out of his tree. That happened on August 17th of 1975, and she died on August 30th, 1975. I had three distinguished guests. I had Bishop William Wilmore. I have Mr. Sly Woolford, who is a historian, and he knows all about history. And I have the Queen, the beautiful Queen, Sister Nzinga. Everyone, good evening, and thank you for being a guest on this nice program.
Hey, it's good to be here. Thank you.
That's nice.
Okay,
Thank you for
okay,
inviting me.
Definitely. So before we get into these events, I want you just to introduce yourselves and just let the audience know what is it that you do. We're going to start off with Bishop Wilmore.
Hey, everybody. I'm William Wilmore. I live in Wilmington, Delaware. I wear many hats. Currently, I'm a senior pastor of the New Galilee Baptist Church. Been pastor of that church for 35 years. I'm a retired radio and television personality, and I'm now an actor, full-time actor, and belonging to the SAG union and doing film work, and happy to be here tonight.
I'm a fellow actor. We're in the same boat. Mr. Wolford.
Yeah, my name is Sil Woolford. I retired from working in corporate America probably about 10 years ago and got involved in doing genealogy research on my family, and from there began to lecture on African American history and researching African American history. And again, for the last 8 to 10 years have been lecturing at libraries all over the state of Delaware, primarily again in Newcastle County. Had a TV show on Comcast, which again broadcast some of my lectures. Again, from doing that lecturing and research on history, I got involved with the state organizations that preserve history. I'm a commissioner with the Delaware Heritage Commission. And one of the things that's important in terms of what they're doing is it was supposed to happen this year, but will happen next year. They're going to publish a book on the 1968 riots. So that's incredibly important. Also serve on Historical and Cultural Affairs collection committee. They collect historic artifacts in order to preserve the history of Delaware and the history of all ethnic groups in the state of Delaware. Doing some guest lecturing at the University of Delaware. They have a course now where they're trying to determine whether the founders of the University of Delaware had any involvement with slavery, and also are researching the university's association with the African American community in Newark. So have done some incredible research there on pre-Civil War African American community of Newark. So again, very busy and doing research and lecturing.
Oh, well, you're a busy man. Thank you for being a guest, taking the time out of your schedule. Okay, Queen.
Peace and love, everybody. I'm Sister Nzinga. I'm the retired owner of Nzinga's Culture Connection. It's located in downtown Wilmington, and the former president of the African Connection, who celebrates the 7-day Kwanzaa celebration.
Okay, so for those of us who weren't around, I think my parents they were in high school when Dr. King got shot and murdered back August 4th, 1968. Mom went to Howard High School. My dad went to PS DuPont schools. From what I hear, they were rivals. But in any event, when that day happened, I want to start off with you, Queen. I want to ask everybody, where were you at? What were you doing? What were your thoughts when you heard about the murder of Dr. King? You go start off with you.
I can't remember where I was because I was so much younger then. No.
Very good.
But I don't remember where I was. You know, the most vivid memory that I have of it is I was younger. I really was younger then, and is seeing those big tanks going up the streets,
Okay.
You know, they were when it's patrolling or people staying outside the stores. You know, with guns across them and stuff. You know, things like that. I remember things like that, and then some things that happened to things in my family. But the one, my sister, they were attending Delaware State at the time, and so there was a lot of, right. It was people who were standing up for themselves because they wanted to do some different things with some of the buildings down there. The name, because they didn't want the Martin Luther King Center to be named that, and then also they was going to name a second dorm for the boys, and they wanted to name it Boys Second Gym. I mean, Boys Dorm 2, versus putting I forgot the name of the parents. He said, versus putting it on, known one of our heroes, name on the building. So that's pretty much the most things I remember. And that thing with those big tanks, because I was young and I'm looking, I had to look up to those things. It was
Right.
It was a mess. It was.
All right, Mr. Wolford.
Again, let me, I guess, tell you how old I am and where I was. In 1968, I was 25 years old. And again, what was happening was because of the efforts of Martin Luther King, corporate America was beginning to integrate. I was working for the Campbell Soup Company up in Camden, New Jersey. And I joined them in 1965. And when I got there were only 3 Black accountants out of 200,000 employees. The first Black accountant showed up the year I got there in 1964. And what I most remember is it seemed like 200,000 white folks, when I showed up for work that day, said, "What's going to happen now? What do you think about Martin Luther King? Is this the end of peaceful protest? Are we going to get into a war? Are we going to continue to see the cities burn?" So my recollection is being asked a lot of questions about this issue, and again, really not having a lot of answers. We were at the preliminary stage of integration. We were, again, basically had 1 or 2 Black folks. Women were not even allowed to be accountants at Campbell Soup Company. So there were major social changes about to occur. And again, I was asked a lot of questions then that I didn't have answers to, and probably don't have answers to today.
Okay, Bishop.
I was 15 years old, and I was living in a place called Corner Catch outside of Newark. I didn't grow up in the city of Wilmington. I grew up in the suburbs, and first of all, the whole country, pretty much in the African American community, was in an uproar when this all happened.
Yeah.
And I remember being so angry at 15 years old and wanting to do something. There was no guard activity where I grew up, where I live, but from Wilmington, from Corner Catch to Wilmington, Delaware, you could see the sky red where fires had been set in the city of Wilmington. And I wanted somehow, I felt like I wanted to be part of some kind of demonstration. My father and mother were very adamant about that. So, you're not leaving this house. It was a real scary time for us because in Corner Catch, there were only 2 Black families. Mine and a family lived up the road. Everybody were farmers. We had a horse farm, and we all got along really well. Black folk, white folk, we all got along. We're all farmers. My father and mother were real concerned because they didn't know what was gonna happen now, because Black folk in Wilmington had gone pretty much buck wild and angry, and and police and
Buck Wild, they finally stood up.
They were tearing some stuff that I wanted to be a part of it. I really did. I felt like I should be a part of it. And when I was young, and impressionable, and I look at it now, and I can see it very vividly.
Well, so during that time, from my research, the riot, I guess they were saying it was riots, protests, demonstrations. Now, do any of you know, did those events take place in downtown Wilmington, or they took different places in Wilmington, or was it in Market Street Mall, Rodney Square? Where exactly did the, I guess the fires and the demonstrations and the rallies, et cetera, occur?
It was pretty much a lot of the downtown areas, you know, a lot of the populous areas. There were a lot of stores, but my grandmother lived on Lombard Street, 1005 Lombard Street, and I do remember days after that going there because the guy who cut my hair was on that block, right across the street from Kip Buckers. Yeah, Mr. Shockley. And and I remember walking down the street, and you had to be on the porch. You know, they were just cleaning the house, and so it was kind of everywhere. I mean, it's wherever folk was mad, and you know, we were out of control to some great degree. You know, and we had heroes that tried to be the voices of peace. I mean, I can remember these people now. You know, Al Plan and LZ and J Street and Hicks Anderson tried to be the voice of peace, but they were angry too. You know,
yeah, but rightfully so. I mean, it was, we had right to be angry.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was born 1957, so I think I was only about 9 or 10, something around that time. And so like I said, I really was a little girl, and that big size of that tank, you know, was scary to me, and seeing them with the guns and stuff. But you know, it was a time that we said we weren't going to take no more. You know, we get to this 2 points where we said we're not going to take no more. We stand up for ourselves. And I think it was definitely some stores that were downtown, because I reviewed some of the pictures of some different things that happened around that time. But you know, it was
yeah. So let me ask you all.
the feeling of that happening was devastating to us, you know, and so.
Right. Yeah, see, it must have been rough. So, so some of you were in school, you know, other was working. While you were in school, while you were working on your job, was this a topic of conversation? Did any of your teachers come together and say, hey, let's talk about what happened? Or did any of your coworkers or your bosses have a conference with the employees and say, hey, let's talk about what's happened? You know, because this is the culture event. It's an event that affects everybody, especially the African-American community. So I was just wondering that while you were in school or while you were working, was this a subject of topic of discussion?
I was told to stay home. I was told not to go. I didn't go to school. One, because somebody tried to call me. I was told to stay home because one, the school that I was attending was predominantly a white school. My mom and dad didn't know what in the world was going to happen, and so they for the first couple of days they made me stay home and not go. And I never had any trouble from anybody, you know. I mean, everybody kind of liked me, but they were just concerned because, you know, the color of the skin at the time, you know, it was almost like a race war. It really was to some degree. My wife told me a story about, she remembered being in Wilmington and seeing a white guy come down the street in a car in a black neighborhood, and they stopped that car and turned the car over. And yeah, it was, you know.
Repeat that. What? I'm sorry. Repeat that.
My wife said she remembered when this all happened, a white guy came down the street in a black neighborhood in a car, and some black brothers saw it and stopped the car. Why he was there, nobody knows. Turned the car over. Turned the car over. I guess I'm sure he got out of there okay, but you know, why? Unless he got lost, I don't know what he was doing over there. But no, I didn't go to school. I didn't go to school. for a couple of days. I don't remember when I went back to school, to be honest.
Oh, really? Oh, wow. Okay. So, Sister Nzinga, so you was probably in elementary. Oh, so go ahead, Mr. Wolford. I'll come back to you, Queen.
Let me make a distinction between types of riots, if I may. We just celebrated the 100th anniversary of the Tulsa, Oklahoma riots, the burning of Black Wall Street.
Oh.
This was a race riot. Race riot was in Tulsa's case, it was white folks with guns and dropping gas bombs on houses, etc., destroying African American communities. This also happened in East St. Louis, Illinois. When we come up to 1968, it was not really a black on white kind of thing. It was many blacks were destroying, setting on fire, looting businesses again in the community, and it was very much a tearing up of the African. Excuse me.
No, excuse me.
Okay. So the African American community was being again burned and destroyed, and Wilmington specifically took a lot of time to come back, and is still trying to come back in terms of Market Street with many efforts. So what happened in '68 again had long-term impact on again the business community, the downtown community of many cities, including Wilmington.
And so, Queen, I guess you was in elementary school. I don't know if you recall any conversations that your teachers might have had or your classmates.
I don't recall. I don't recall. But I was just asking the gentleman, the buildings, yes, they were in our community, but were they the ones that were owned by us or owned by people not from the community?
Again, this becomes an issue with riots today and riots in 1968 as to whether these were white businesses being burned or black businesses being burned, etc. Again, there was a detrimental impact on black businesses during that period of time, and so it was hurtful to the community itself, and again, we can call it self-inflicted wounds or not. The community was trying to express its outrage, as we've just said, and in many instances, anything that could burn was burning, and I'm not sure there was lots of logic as to whether it was a black businesses or a white business. It was just rage, and again, as has been said, sometime there were just white folks riding down the street who made a wrong turn, who were impacted by the rage that was going on in the community.
I know there were some because the mayor and some other folk made it very clear that they were trying to find ways to save Little Italy, because Little Italy was almost a target. That was kind of a target. I mean, there were folk that were trying to get out to Little Italy and set some stuff on fire because they knew we didn't own any of that. You know, the businesses that got destroyed and burned and such in the black community, you're right, so they were businesses. We were tearing up our own stuff. You know, we setting on fire our own stuff. But for the most part,
right,
that didn't happen on a broad scale intentionally to try to take black-owned businesses out. I mean, again, right across the street was Skip Butler from my grandmama's house, and you know, and then up the street was Cloudy's drugstore, and there wasn't any fire. You know, there wasn't, you know, all that stuff. You know about that. The Baby Grand around the corner, Ed Bell's funeral home, all that stuff. But again, those are all pretty much black communities. They were really 99% black communities. The white communities were Hilltop and Little Italy and parts of Market Street. You know, we didn't have a lot of own stuff, because in 1968 we were still sitting in backs of buses, we were not eating in certain places, there were some Jim Crow laws, but for the most part, Black folk kind of had this understanding of, we don't go there, we don't do this, we kind of had our own little places that, and so you were right, white folk that got caught up in that made a wrong turn or trying to get away and
Sure.
figure I'll cut this way and drove into the hornet's nest.
Sure.
Mhm.
Again,
Wow.
as I've
So I
said,
remember that.
Okay,
as
go
I
ahead.
said, I was working for Campbell Soup Company up in Camden, New Jersey, and when I first started working for Campbell Soup in the summertime, it was tomato season, and they used to make tomato soup 24 hours, 7 days a week, and tomato trucks would come up from South Jersey and run again all night long. There were 55,000 employees at Campbell Soup making soup during that period of time. And so the question you have, well, how did it affect Campbell Soup? Campbell Soup just kept running its operation. The issue is, if they had been impacted by riots, 55,000 folks wouldn't have gotten a paycheck. And so 55,000 folks acted like nothing was going on because
Right.
Friday was payday. Okay, and they were hourly employees, and if you didn't put in your 40 hours, you didn't get a paycheck. So you ignored riots and fires and everything else because you were concerned with the paycheck. And again, in trying to talk about the impact of these riots, most folks just had to blanket out and do their job and go to work. And as the Reverend said, we were at the beginning of integration, and we were at the beginning of getting livable wages. And so literally, if you had a job, the best advice that could be given to you is forget the riot and go to your job. Act like nothing's going on. And then in a historical context, you can look back and say, what were we fighting for? And there was a lot to fight for in 1968. The integration was just being 100% implemented. There were some folks, again, who had started off their education in segregated schools, in the DuPont schools. So Howard High School and Lewis L. Redding and William Jason and William Henry were still Black high schools in the state of Delaware, not totally shut down, not totally integrated. So there was a lot of work to be done. And again, 68 again, and the riot really didn't help that process and make everybody feel comfortable that we could all get along.
Omar, there's an interesting paradigm in all this, because some of what we saw in Wilmington last year when we had all the stores downtown Market Street.
Yeah, I think it was 2 years ago that was the George Floyd outcome.
The interesting paradigm with all of this is, in 1968, folk that were tearing up stuff, setting things on fire, Nzinga said, we was mad. We was just flat out mad. And that was the way we were showing, listen, we're not gonna take this anymore. In the George Floyd situation, I'm convinced that some of those kids that went out there and did all that stuff didn't do it because of, necessarily because George got murdered. Some of them came because it was something to do. It became excitement. It was exciting to be part of what they thought was a movement, and go down there and not destroy things to send a message, but they ended up breaking into the sneaker store and taking sneakers and all that stuff. And it was a big deal. It was a big joke. It was a lot. It was fun to them. There was nothing funny in 1968 about what was going on in the street. And those people that were in the street were folk that listen. I don't know what we're going to do, but we gotta make it very clear that this is unsatisfactory. None of it was going to bring Dr. King back, but at the same time, that was the only avenue I think that many people had, that they had to find a way to vent that anger.
Yeah, I was at the, well, that day with the George Floyd situation, there was a rally at Rodney Square, so and I was there, but that was pretty much during the daytime. So, so after we left, that's when all the, it really got really intense during that evening. Back in 1960. Oh, go ahead, Sister Queen. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, according to the things that I heard and saw, that that situation with George Floyd here in Delaware and so many other places was mixed with so many other different people and things and
Right.
groups that had their own agenda.
Right.
And
yes.
so, so some of the things that, some people were blamed for something this other people did, but other people incited this. It was such a mess, that it got to the point that just, like I said, it became so messy that, people were just rioting and looting and so forth. So, that really became, that's the time when I think it became out of control.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Back in 1968, as I did my research, it was Governor Cherry, I believe, he called the National Guards, and they were there for 9 months. I mean, was that really necessary? 9 months? Was it that bad?
It was the longest occupation in any U.S. history, or any city in the United States. You got to understand that part of the mayor's move to call the guard was, again, kind of speaking to something that Sil said a few moments ago. We're in a period of time where Jim Crow in many ways is still very much alive in city government, and the guard was always and has always been the governor's muscle. And so, we didn't have any black mayors. There was no black mayor. And so that was kind of almost, we got to bring the hardest muscles that we can to keep the black folk in line. That's really that's why they stayed here that long, because even after they're gone, and the tension cools down, we're still here. We're still, at that point, we're still 70% African American city. And was it necessary to keep them there that long? Everybody questioned whether they needed to stay here that long, but it didn't change the fact that that was the decision that those who were in authority, those who were calling the government shots, that's the decision they made. Yes. And some of it was based on how they perceive things ought to be with us, where we should be and what we shouldn't be allowed to do. And so the guard was, again, keep the black folks pretty much in line.
Always trying to control us.
Yeah, right.
That's always trying to control us.
Sure. Yeah. What also has to be understood about this period of time is Martin Luther King's leadership and Martin Luther King's movement. A year before Martin Luther King was assassinated, he had a march on the UN. It was an anti-Vietnam War march. And again, as I said, I got out of Delaware State in '65, and the first thing I got was a draft notice. And I ended up going in the Army Reserve for 6 years. And so during the 1968 riots, not only was I working literally 50, 60 hours a week, but I was also spending weekends, 2 days a week, going to reserve duty to keep from going to Vietnam. So there were lots of things going on. And even in Martin Luther King's movement, there were things going on. He died in Memphis, okay? And he died there trying to get livable wages for garbage collectors. And again, this was a deviation or difference. This was a humanitarian effort. It wasn't specifically about civil rights or restaurants or right to vote or whatever. He had expanded his movement and now was talking about livable wages for garbage collectors. And again, a lot of Black folks weren't following him in the direction. Many folks, again, thought that if America was fighting a war, it was patriotic for every citizen to, go out and fight this war, except for many who didn't want to get shot, which was a whole different story. But Martin Luther King was taking a lot of heat for a lot of different different reasons. And so when he died, again, it was going back to his legacy. It was going back to his I Have a Dream and his leadership in the civil rights movement that kind of brought everybody to this boiling point and brought everybody to this rage which existed.
Right. I want to now move to the Sheila Farrell case. August 17th, she got shot as a Sunday evening for taking a peach off a tree by John Bailey. She was in a coma after the shooting and died on August 30th, 1975. I know, Mr. Wolford, you say you weren't in Wilmington during that time, so I'm going to go to the Queen and Bishop for a little bit. What do you recall during that time with Sheila Farrell, Queen? I guess she was probably closer to your age during that time. And what was it like?
Yeah, I mean, back then, excuse me, I was like devastated and like unbelievable, like really, over just climbing over to grab a peach. So it was just like, yeah, it was just really just unbelievable to me that would happen at that time. Of course, I don't know what I knew. I wish I knew what I knew now, but then, but yeah, it was just shocking and devastating for her, to know that, wow, that this could happen to her and, to me and anybody in my community, that kind of thing, really happened here, where we live at.
Right. Okay, Bishop.
Yeah. Well, probably again, we were all devastated. We were all devastated by that. I think the thing that frustrates me the most about the Sheila Farrell case is that sometimes I feel like it was one of these, let's not talk about it anymore, it's gonna go away, because there was never any conviction in that case. John Bailey didn't go to jail per se for a crime, and it wasn't long after he got out of where he was that he committed some similar crime, and I don't know whether he's even still alive. His family kind of got him all out of town, but they never found a gun. The question was, did the family member remove the weapon? There are people who heard the gunshot go off, and you got a young girl who just didn't see life. That's the saddest part about all of this, is the fact that you had such a young age cut down who never had an opportunity. I mean, who knows what Sheila Farrell would have become. I wrote one of my plays. I wrote a couple plays. One of my plays is called "I Feel Your Pain," and it's told by four young ladies who were victims of hate crimes. The three girls who died in the church blast, and Sheila Farrell was the other one. In the play, it's all monologue, and they all take center stage, and they tell their story about what they would have become had they lived.
Wow.
And
That's beautiful.
It's out on the internet. You can buy it from one of the play companies. But even to this day, Sheila Farrell in the whole crime, I don't remember what the outcome of all of that was. I don't recall how it all ended. I don't remember how it all ended. It ended with question marks. And even to this day, I think there's still question marks.
Yeah. Well, from my research, she was a student at Burnett Middle School. She was a dancer, from my understanding. And then I think that John Bailey, I believe he was sentenced to 30 years for manslaughter, 10 years for this and that. I don't think he served all that time.
He didn't.
But from my understanding, they said his family had a record store on King Street. I was talking to my father last week about that. Do any of you remember the record store, the Bailey record store during that time?
It's a Bailey record store?
Yeah. My father, and I talked to some other people. They said,
like, what part?
They said it might have been on King Street. I'm not sure.
Down by 4th Street? Was it down by
I think so.
by Wilmington Dry Goods?
Yeah, it might have been like fourth or second in Kings, some sort, but from my understanding, his family had a record store. Do any of you recall the community protesting or demonstrating, really getting upset during that time?
Yeah, I remember hearing that. The same names that I mentioned a few moments ago. You know, who were the community watchdogs, heroes, voices of reason. You know, Al. You know, and again, you know, LD, because these names keep coming up over and over and over again. When the community had issues, these were the elders that we counted on to at least have some sense of, you know, propriety and order, or who had a voice of reason that could say, hey, listen, we don't so and so. And people pretty much followed what their lead was, you know, Toots Farrell, all those people that have gone on now. Those were the people. And as you said, Omar, you know, she was shot, she lingered for a while. And there was some, you know, concerns about, you know, if she, you know, being a dancer. Now I remember you saying after you said that, if she survived, she was never going to be the same again. And everybody wanted to, you know, do something. They had to have protection for Bailey. You know, even if he was under watch. You know, they were threats. There were threats. You know, people, we're gonna get you. Right. And again, I don't. You know, he didn't serve all his time, and you know, again, I think the thing he said, she stole my damn peach. That came out of his mouth. She stole peach. And again, you know, it was again a situation of, you know, you had some considered privileged folk, privileged individual, pretty much, you know, taking a life that in some eyes was insignificant. You know, the whole Black Lives Matter movement of the 21st century didn't exist then, you know, didn't exist then. And now suddenly, you know, everybody's up in arms about, you know, Black Lives Matter, Black Lives Matter. Well, they mattered, they've always mattered. But we didn't have that in the 60s. We didn't have that movement, you know, and so things happened. And in Sheila Farrell's case, you know, we just had to rely on prayer, try to stay together, you know, in the community, and try to come together and say, look, you know, this happened. What do we do without destroying, you know, taking it back to the plantation days? Move forward. We're not going to settle for this, but at the same time, we can't do, because that's the world in which we live. Then can't do certain things because we're all going to go back, you know, as a result, we do that. So.
We know, Bishop just mentioned the Black Lives Matter movement, and however, if you look at the history in the African American community, Mr. Woolford, you did have the civil rights movement under the leadership of Dr. King. You had the human rights movement under the leadership of Malcolm X. And you had the Black Panther Party during that time. So what was it like back in the 60s with all those different organizations, you know, fighting pretty much for freedom, justice, equality, you know, for all?
Well, you know, I was going to start at a different end. I was going to start where we are 2021, and what we are all trying to come up with is colorblind justice. We're trying to say that if an incident occurs, if an injustice occurs, or if a crime occurs, that person is adjudicated by the criminal justice system, and if guilty, found guilty. We have several cases going on TV now with this young vigilante who shot folks. And then we have 3 guys who attacked a Black guy who was out jogging. We want to, where we want to get to at some point in time, and if 2021 is not the year, we hope it is soon, that we can have colorblind justice. Again, as the Reverend was saying, we always used to have to call on JJ or call on Al Plant or someone to make noise for us, or to put our plight out there. Wilmington has already been through having Black mayors. We assumed that if we had Black mayors, and now we have again, president of the city council we are hoping, okay, that we don't have to continue to go to the streets and burn something down and set fires, to get attention for our cause. The 60s, again, were turbulent times. Again, one comedian said, we think of the past as the wonderful past, but in the 60s, everybody got shot. I mean, President Kennedy got shot. Bobby Kennedy got shot. Malcolm X got shot. Medgar Evers got shot. Martin Luther King got shot. George Wallace got shot. We hope we don't have to go back to that time and try to solve problems by shooting politicians and shooting leaders in a way of just showing our frustration. And so we are still searching for, the answer to these questions. And regrettably, a lot of things haven't changed in the 60s, since the 60s.
That's rough. In terms of your individual work, I wanted to touch on all three of your individual work. Sister Nzinga, every time I think about you, Kwanzaa comes to my mind. And next month, from December 26th to January 1st is Kwanzaa. And, Kwanzaa is us, it tells us to love ourselves, to do for ourselves. And I want to integrate that in this conversation. So if you could define for those who may not fully understand what is Kwanzaa and what are the several principles of Kwanzaa.
Okay, thank you. Kwanzaa was a holiday that was developed by Maulana Karinga, and it's a 7-day celebration that has African values. It's not anything that exactly happens in Africa. He took bits and pieces of that different cultural parts of Africa along with ours and made up a 7-day Kwanzaa celebration. It's not a religious holiday at all. And it's not supposed to be a replacement for Christmas. But what it is a beautiful thing that if our principles that based on principles of unity, self-determination, collective worker responsibility, cooperative economics, creativity, purpose, and faith. These 7 principles installed into our daily lives would just make such a big difference to us as a community, as individuals, and as community and family, and onto the nation. It starts December 26th through January the 1st, and will be celebrated in Wilmington, of course, because of this situation we're under. They will be doing something online. It has a Facebook page called the African Connection, African spelled with a K. So it will be online and tell you what the dates and locations of where they're going to be at. We've been doing this for over 20 something years. I recently passed my reign on to Sister Kima Gallardo, and so now she's the president of that organization. And but it's still happening in Wilmington, Delaware.
Right.
Right.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful. And Mr. Woolford, when I first met you several years ago, you were doing the genealogy. Do you still do that? And what does that consist of?
I'm still doing genealogy on, again, my own family, as well as we're literally doing the entire genealogy of the African-American community of Newark. And again, still lecturing. The pandemic obviously shut down many of my lectures at the libraries, but the Hockessin Library kind of put me on their agenda, and for the past 16 months, I've been doing monthly Zoom lectures sponsored by the Hockessin Library. So again, the pandemic has impacted the way all of us do business. Some of it good, some of it bad. Again, you have this vehicle and I have this vehicle of Zoom and Facebook and all those things which get us to other audiences, and we can sit in our home and participate. But again, it has changed the way we do business. And again, I'm still very active in looking for African-American artifacts to put in the state's collection, as well as, again, because I'm with the Delaware Heritage Commission, I'm in all kinds of celebrations. We celebrated the 100th anniversary of the ratification of the 19th Amendment, the women's right to vote, and uncovered a monument to women suffragettes. We're now beginning to research and plan for the 250th anniversary of the country. And again, because I'm Black, folks come to me and say, well, did Black Delawareans fight for in the Revolutionary War, and what were their names and what battles were they in? And regardless of whether we're celebrating the Civil War or the Revolutionary War, I kind of get those kinds of questions of where were the Black folks at, and where were the Black women during the women's suffrage movement? Again, all of this becomes, again, history that we should celebrate. But again, it takes a lot of research in order to make it available, and again, to present it to the public. And so I spend 8 to 10 hours a day doing research and lecturing.
Right. And Bishop, when you look at the struggle for African Americans, the Black church played this role. Sometimes Black church facilitated meetings. Sometimes they sang spiritual songs. So as a bishop, how important is it that the Black church continue to be involved in the struggle when it comes to, freedom, justice, fight against brutality, fight against racism, et cetera, et cetera?
Well, the Black church had always been in the forefront. The pandemic has had an incredible impact on the church. We don't are not able to come together like we used to because of the pandemic. I mean, I still know churches that are closed, have been closed for over a year, and I don't know whether some of those folks are going to get, some of those pastors are going to get those people back. We were closed. Our church was closed for a period of time. Then we opened, and then we closed again. But even as open, we have greatly diminished numbers of people. I mean, when I used to see, 200, 300, 400 people on Sunday morning. Now I might see 50. And oh yeah, man, it's and we have online. We still do online, and I have people all over the country, and then some from the churches that I have, foreign places that are watching. So we're grateful for that. But in terms of the church of the 21st century doesn't have, at least the Black church, doesn't quite have the voice that it used to have. The days of the NAACP and the church being pretty much married in terms of how we got our messages out and rallies and that sort of thing don't exist too much anymore. Churches have become so progressive to a point that they're almost sometimes, I think, not much heavenly good, because it's become, in too many places, it's become entertainment time on Sunday mornings. It's become a popularity contest, who has the biggest church and who has the greatest congregations and all that sort of thing. I'm actually wrestling right now with the next chapters in my life. I'm not sure how much longer I'm going to pastor a church. I've put 36 years of my life into this. I'm not mad at my people. I love them and they love me. I just worry that I'm beginning to be old and fuddly, and I don't want to be that. And maybe it's time for Joshua to come along, So I mean, I got a lot of good, stuff in me. God hasn't told me that I could retire from pastoring, but He didn't tell me that I could. And so I keep saying to him, man, you better say something, because pretty soon here I'm gonna turn around and just, jump up and I want to go to Africa before I die. Right. I want to before I die. I have 15 churches, mission churches in Kampala, East Africa, and some of those folks were victims of terrorist attack on yesterday, and I'm concerned about it. But I want to go and see Africa and visit my friends and family in Africa before I leave this planet. And it's hard to do that when you are a full-time pastor. And then also, Omar, we act, and my life as an actor has become so wonderful. I'm at a stage in my life now where things are happening, really, really great things are happening. And I want to be able, if God will let me, spend the rest of my days pursuing that you know, trying to get my little marks in here and there. You know, I got some great projects that are out, and got a brand new picture that comes out tomorrow that I'm hoping you'll see me in. Go to the movies and look for Bruise with Halle Berry. And,
Okay, he big time.
yeah. So we'll see.
Right.
We'll see.
All right. You made mention of the Black Lives Matter movement earlier. We have cases like Sheila Furrow and the incident that happened to Dr. Martin King Jr. and other George Floyd. There's outcry in the community. There are those who say, well, how come we as African Americans, we want to hoop, holler, and scream when blacks are the victims of white aggression, but when it's black on black crime, we don't have that same outrage. We don't have that same outcry. So I want to ask any one of you, what do you think? Do you believe those sentiments? Do we as African Americans, do we take too lightly when it's black on black crime? But when it's white on black crime, we all up in an uproar. I heard people say that.
We take it a little lightly. I spent 3.5 years on the road with the production of the show called Justice on Trial, Black Lives Matter 2. And I had a chance to work on Broadway on this show, and it's still out here. They're still performing, and we sold out 1,400, 1,500, 2,000 seat auditoriums every single place we appeared, because it was the issue that we're dealing with now, and it also dealt with reparations, which we never received, and then in the play, Medgar Evers, Emmett Till, and Harriet Tubman come back from the grave to testify in this court trial. And people came from every walk of life, black and white, hungry to hear, the stories being told. And if we could find a way in our community, if we could find a way to educate people about the struggle, and at the same time educate us about what we can do as a people together, if we will stop fussing and fighting with each other and sit down and work, we could do some stuff. We're too busy sometimes worrying about the haves and the have-nots and fussing between us, and we become crabs in the barrel, and then we want to argue and make a lot of noise about crimes against us when we don't talk about the crimes that we commit against each other. That's hard for me. That's hard for me. That makes me angry.
Okay. Anyone else ever comment?
Well, let me make a comment if I could.
Sure.
Again, we were hoping that when we were in control and when we were in power, meaning that when we sat in the mayor's seat, that when we sat in the city council president's seat, that when we were the police chief, that all of these problems would go away. And again, Wilmington has had black mayors and black presidents of city council and again, black police chief. And somehow we have not been able to master the solution or come up with this master plan in order to fix the problem. And again, many of us, such as this discussion today, have great concerns about black on black crime and young kids killing each other, and the breakdown of not only the family structure, but the moral structure of the community. And so we are looking for solutions and answers, and it always takes resources. And now we're talking resources of not just passing the plate and ending up with a couple $100 at the end of the day. We literally are talking millions and millions of dollars in order to try to address the problem of education, or the problem of lack of job skills, or the lack of capital investment in our community, and all of those kinds of things. So it is tough for us to come up with solutions when the resources that are needed to fix these problems are far beyond, just passing the hat and trying to come up with a solution.
You're muted, Queen.
Okay, is that better? Can
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with what both of you have said, but it's just again, things are just so messy. There's so many things or avenues or parts of this problems that we have had for so long that we're just kind of inundated with so many different issues. I mean, and our problem mostly for me, in my opinion, is that we have to stop looking outside of ourselves for our solutions. What we are doing is, we have been here in America for 400 years. You know, the whole story is blah, 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 blah. We know what has happened to us. And surely this year, with all this mess going on with the pandemic, with Trump and all that kind of stuff, that we truly, truly, truly see this society for what it really is. You know, if we've never ever seen it before, we really truly do see it now. So we have to stop thinking that we're going to go back to this society that created all these issues for us. You know, and not saying that we definitely have a big responsibility in it, because right now we're in 2021, and sometimes we know, we know stuff, and but we still don't do anything about it. We would just listen to, you know, read a book. We'll you know, have it go through a lecture, and you know, or take a program or something. But we're not actually individually. If each of us individually would do our part of the responsibility for ourselves, and then collectively we will all be doing some good, positive things, you know, for ourselves, and then we'll see the results. We'll see, you know, will be examples, you know, that we need. But we really have to start, you know, saying that in order for us to do this, we've got to come back to ourselves, and we got to get ourselves out of this, because we cannot go back to the person that created our problems and think that they're going to solve our problems. You know, that's not going to happen. So we as individuals have to take that responsibility. And I listened to this guy. I don't know if you guys know him. He used to live in Delaware. Balagoon, James Kennedy. He used to have the BIT investment program on Channel 28. You know, one comment that he made is that he was talking about the Million Man March situation, and that back then with the Million Man March, you know, that all the brothers made an oath and saying they was going to come back and get involved in the communities, and you know, and do things and so forth and so on. And that brother, I really have to commend him, and he really did do that and has been doing that and still doing that now. But what he was saying is that if that had really happened, with all the money that this system spends on, like, you know, controlling us, you know, hiring, you know, the National Guard to control us, you know, the guns, the new things, the cameras, all that kind of stuff. If we as a people can control our own neighborhoods and our own, you know, youth, then that money, those resources that we could be using, we could be doing for something productive. I mean, there's so many other things that we could be doing, but we all have a responsibility, because right now it does, you know, we're just continuing to just, you know, just listen and not take action, and take action, you know, upon the things that we do know. You know, this wisdom is not really good if you're not taking no action. You have to have some action on it. So, you know, it's our responsibility. And of course it is their responsibility, but we can really clearly see that they're not trying to do that. That's not where they want us to be. They just want to continue controlling us and tell us what to do, what to wear, you know, what kind of refrigerator to get, you know, the new color that's in place. And I mean, that's really what it is. It's still mental slavery. It's mental slavery. It's no more child slavery, but there's still a form of slavery going on today, because we continue to see us these things. Okay, I don't know how true it is, because I heard on what's the name? I'm just on the sidebar for a moment. But is it true that there was a lady who was found hung in St. Louis or something like that? Is that true?
Yeah, I saw that on the news feed.
So
in fact, I shared it on my Facebook page. Matter of fact,
that really is just outrageous. I mean, that's just, you know, cuss words. You know what I'm saying. So my point that I was going to make is that if we looked at some of the things that they used to do to us back in the days, like take Emmett Till, how they just took Emmett Till and just, you know, drove him down, you know, dragged him, and, you know, and did what they did to him and beat him and so forth. Okay, what's the difference between that and the guy Aubrey, where these three men in a truck, you know, chased him down and shot him? And what is the difference? And we just keep thinking that this system in place is going to be our solution. It's not. We have to do for self.
Unfortunately, what happens is we don't come to this epiphany until we reach our age. Now, I'm saying our age. I mean, you're the baby here. You know, you and Omar. But it's not till that's when the epiphany happens. When we reach our age and we say, you know, look, man, you all, what is wrong with you all? Well, you know, it was going on back to some degree when we were young, but we were just part of go along. Now we've gotten to be, you know, mature, and we're trying to find some ways. And the problem with it is that the horse is so far out of the barn with some of these young people that it's hard to reach them. The parents didn't do their job at home. And so now they're running buck wild here and there. You're almost afraid to say anything to them. And we all remember growing up, at least I do, when you out in the neighborhood acting a fool, the lady down in the corner that you couldn't stand because she told everything that she knew, but she grabbed us, wore us out, sent us home, got wore out again. Now it's a whole different thing, but we see it now, Nzinga, because we are old and we're mature, and we, as the Bible says, we saw through a glass darkly, but now we see some stuff face to face.
And I totally agree with you, but I would also feel, and I think I could say that for just as many children who are the ones who, like back in the days, have the experience that we do. So a lot of times, what we continue to say this and say this and say this. I'm not disrespecting or trying to say it, but we do say that, but we use this as an excuse to not to go out there and at least try to grab you one, because there's just as many hard ones out there that would say, flip you up and say cuss words to tell you whatever. There is one or two out there who do want to have some guidance, who do want to be able to have a mentor who would love to have a brother or either a female to mother him or to father him. So we have to stop saying that this is that's the problem, and because that is part of our problem, because we just say it, we're not really haven't tried to do it or even tried to to share the possibility of something different other than this system, because this is just a rhetoric. We just keep saying that, oh no, the children are bad, or oh no, I can't see this, or I can't, so we have to start again, if we take some action towards the things that we do know and just put those things into action, it'll be a solution. Of course, everything ain't for everybody. So, but I'm just saying, but there are some things that we can do for ourselves, within our community, within our little cipher or so forth. So I just try to be a lot more optimistic about it. And for, again, we all talk about just the negative things, because this society is only going to feed us the negative things that happen to us. Because even though a black on crime, these young children that are killing each other, it's disgusting. It really is disgusting. It's messed up. So, but do you see on the news that they report, that a white boy shot a white boy, or that Italian boy shot an Italian boy? The only ones so they feed us this, the only ones that they even report on, even sharing, when they report the news, is another black on black crime. Okay, well, I'm sure there's several times that a white man shot a white man somewhere, a white woman shot a black man, but it's not reported like that. And again, this is the kind of mind control that they have, that they keep us in this mindset to make us, always see the things that we do are just such bad things, and not feed us the good things that we've done. And then, again, if they select who our leaders are, so we have to start knowing that this American dream is not our dream. And we have to start making decisions about what's good for ourselves. And then, it would grow beyond ourselves and our families, in our community and our nation. We have to start making better choices, knowing the things that we know.
Right. So we're heading to the end of the program. I'm going to give each three of you opportunity to say some closing remarks, about 2 or 3 minutes. But before we do that, Queen and Bishop, do you remember Sheila Farrell's funeral? Did any one of you two attended it, or have you heard about it?
I was young. I didn't go to the funeral. But I think I remember hearing that it was very beautiful, and hearing people talk about it, but I know I didn't attend myself personally.
Okay, all right. So we're going to have some closing comments. We're going to start off with Mr. Woolford. Anything you want to say in closing?
Well, again, we always are dealing with these structural issues. Structural issues became segregation, and then we thought integration was the solution. And I call education in Delaware whack-a-mole. Whack-a-mole meaning that every time Black folks make a step forward, that the white folks move in the other direction. And one of the things that is continuously on my mind is Wilmington Charter and Newark Charter. And so the question is, why is Wilmington Charter and Newark Charter on your mind? Because they are draining off the best students out of here in Newcastle, the best students. And once you drain off the top 10% of the students and put them in two schools, then you end up with a William Penn or a Christiana or a Glasgow that is dealing with the lesser students. And so therefore, again, you have a greater challenge because the parents who are supportive of their kids are sending their kids to two high schools. And when you get to the other schools, there's less parental support. There is less peer support. And so we have to be aware of what's going on in all the fights that we have fought, meaning we've been fighting education since day one. It has always been the problem. And we thought, again, the solution was integration, and it wasn't. And then we said, well, it's busing. Well, that's the solution. And again, white folks began moving their kids around to charter schools and magnet schools. And we have to play this whack-a-mole continuously in the society in order to just keep up. And again, it's a challenge for all of us to know, where is the best school for our kids? And are we, again, in the situation we are now, we are literally resegregating the schools. I mean, I literally go back to, again, the late 50s and 60s when I was in school, and we are, again, pushing kids into certain schools and saying, well, this school looks like a black school from the 60s. And so we have to be conscious of these kids getting the right skills in order to compete in this very competitive job market. The purpose of education, the purpose of education is to get a job, okay? And God bless the historians. I am one of them, but there aren't a lot of folks who can make money talking about history. We have to be computer scientists. We have to be chemists. We have to be engineers. And it's those kinds of skills that we have to make sure African-American students have access to and are excelling in. And again, I'm not sure where the responsibility or hope is. We again, as I said, we have black principals at William Penn and Christiana and Glasgow, and we hope they are holding the system accountable, okay, and making sure that those kids have access to quality education. My closing remarks for the day.
Okay. So, Mr. Woolford,
Thank you. That's a good
for
remark.
those who may want to contact you based on your organization that you're doing, the work that you're doing in the community, how can they contact you?
You have my email address and phone number. Again, my email address is sylwlf@aol.com, and my phone number is 302-290-3060. Again, where I am now in terms of my community support, most folks are calling me about February, Black History Month, and want me to come and give a lecture on African American history, on an Ida B. Wells or a Harriet Tubman or a Frederick Douglass. And that's the I guess, main thrust of my community activism. But again, I am, again, at a higher level and working with the state to see that African American history is preserved by the state. It's the states, it's not only our individual responsibilities to preserve our history, but the state has an obligation to do it. So I'm holding them accountable in terms of preserving African American history.
Awesome. Okay, Bishop.
Thank you very much.
Thank you again for this program, Omar. Always very educational and much needed in our community. Keep it up the good work, man. I'll make it real brief. What I believe is most needed is for us to rebuild and maintain the village and stop worrying so much about what's happening in the individual huts and maintain the village. We've been saying for years, take the village to raise a child, and the village has to come. We got to become the village again. We got to become, and that's a mission that has to be personal. You can't be a part of the village and expect the next guy or the next girl to lead the tribe and do all the grunt work. We all have to be the village. And we can do that. We can do that. We have the talent, we have the resources, we have the resources. And then when I say resources, it's not always just money. We are rich. We are the richest people on the planet. We are the original folks, richest people on the planet. God has put it within us, certain gifts and abilities that come very natural to us. But we stopped becoming the village. And when we stopped becoming the village to become the hut, then it was only what happened in my hut was most important to me, not what happened in the village. And so let's go back to the village. Thanks again.
Okay, Bishop, you're welcome. And then for your church services, where you're located, is your services in person? If so, what time? If they're on Facebook Live, what time?
We're 414 Cedar Avenue in Belvedere, Delaware, New Galilee Baptist Church. We're 85 years old. Services every Sunday at 10 a.m. or join us on Facebook Live at 10 a.m. Just if you want to be on the program and want to see the broadcast, become a friend, my friend. Just look for me on Facebook, Bishop William B. Wilmore Jr. And I'd be happy to make you a friend, and then you can see everything live. We do Sunday morning live. I do Wednesday at noon. I got a program called Lunchbox with the Bishop every Wednesday at noon, 30 minutes. Then I'm back on again Wednesday night at 7 o'clock with the Bible study lesson. And I always try to make it very eclectic, and I try to make it applicable to what's going on in the world. So that's all that. And then of course, look for me somewhere in the movie someplace.
Denzel Washington and Halle Berry.
Hey, real quick story about the Halle Berry thing. I've got a lot of great roles through the years, and one of the ones that I had an idol. Halle Berry was an idol. I wanted to meet Halle Berry so bad. And at the time, the lady who was my agent in Cherry Hill sent me a message one time and said, "Listen, are you interested in doing this film with Halle Berry?" I said, "Are you crazy? Of course I am." And so I went down to Atlantic City, and I'm a fight judge in Bruised. She plays Jackie Justice, retired MMA fighter, comes back to the fight game. So I'm in that movie. Whether you see me, I hope you do. We'll see. And but it's been a lot of fun. And I'm out here doing the best I can do.
Okay. All right, Queen, take us home.
Oh, I'm so glad to be here tonight, and thank you for joining me on the panel with the two wise men. It's been very nice talking. Boy, I would just say that we just got to know where our power comes from, and we have to understand that the most important things in life are not things, and so we have to value nature and appreciate it, and just go back to people say don't go back to those old ways, but those old ways got us through, and so it's not saying that the old folks don't know more than the young folks, and young folks don't know more than the old folks. It's just different times, and people and things are being done differently, and so we have to just respect ourselves first, and so we can respect one another, and so we can work together to to bring us up, because Marcus Garvey said, "Up, you mighty people, do as you will." And so it's in us, but we just got to come back and just reprogram our minds to know where our power comes from, and to know that that everything that we would desire to do it's we're able to do that, to achieve those things. So it's I say thank you, Omar, for keeping our history and our culture and activities alive. Continue to do your show, and I'm proud of you and everyone else on this panel, and thank you for letting me be part of it. So I'll say think it ain't illegal yet.
All right. Thank you all for being a guest this evening. It was a wonderful program, and I'm quite sure I'm going to invite you three on a future program. maybe not at the same time, but you're always welcome to be on my show. If you've got any subjects you want to discuss, just give me a shout out. All right. So thank you both. And for those who are watching, please like, subscribe, and share. All right. Take care. God bless, and have a safe week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.